Seventh Child Publishing presents Silas Wilcox and Margaret Belinda Allen. New Evidence Changes Their Story, Part 2. This video continues the documented story of my third great-grandparents. Part 1 told of their origins through traveling to Nauvoo in 1840. Part 2 video will give us a lot more detail about their life in Nauvoo. Part 3 will cover what happened to them after the saints were driven from Nauvoo. Most of this documentation has been made available in recent years, including new evidences about the death of Margaret Belinda Allen, made available after April 2024. Nauvoo land records or maps of early Latter-day Saints shows that Silas and Samuel Allen Wilcox owned a home together. The little red box marks the location of this map, which was the northeast corner of the block crossed by original streets Joseph and Page. It was 4 blocks north and 1 block east of the temple. In her 1881 letter mentioned earlier, Martha, wife of Samuel Allen, said, "We lived in and around Nauvoo until the spring of 1846. It might be helpful to look at the ages of the households of the Wilcox and Parker families for the first full year they lived in Nauvoo, so we can visualize better what their lives were like. Silas Wilcox was 46, Margaret was 43, Silas Jr. was 16, David 11, Phoebe 5, and William was a newborn. They were all very active in building the community and church, as well as providing for their families. All but one of the children had not yet reached their teenage years. So in Samuel Allen Wilcox's family, Samuel was 22, Martha was 21, Melinda was 3, and Sarah Jane was a newborn. In the Joseph Parker family, Joseph was 46, Lucy was 39, Lucy Jr. was 9, and Asenath was 7. We have documented evidence that all of the Wilcox and Parker families were involved in building the original Nauvoo temple. All of the women were part of the original Relief Society. This meant that they were sewing, gardening, and preparing meals for those who were working on the temple, as well as sacrificing much for building. Martha wrote that her husband, Samuel Allen Wilcox, farmed, freighted, and worked on building the temple. The temple committee sent men to the pineries of Wisconsin beginning 25 September 1841 to gather lumber for the temple. Silas and his 2 sons, Silas Jr. and David, went at least by 1844. In 1844, Silas was 49, Silas Jr. was 19, and David was 14. I have used part of the painting by Laura Lynn Farrer of Old Nauvoo to illustrate this slide. The Wilcox home would have been above the upper right corner of the painting. I added links to this slide that will tell you more of the story of the building of the Nauvoo temple and where to access the full painting. After reaching Nauvoo, the Nauvoo records of baptisms for the dead were in ledgers. From 1840 to 1845. In 1957, these ledgers were found in the files in the reading room of the Genealogical Library, 80 North Main, Salt Lake City. The ordinance records can now be found online by members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. However, what is listed under temple ordinances for each individual on the family search may not be the same because this record was not linked to them. Silas Wilcox was baptized in 1841 for Israel Wilcox's father, William Allen, brother-in-law, Anna Wilcox Davis, his sister, and her husband, Horace Davis, his brother-in-law. Timothy Wilcox, his brother. Margaret Wilcox was baptized on 4 August 1844 for Lanny Allen, sister-in-law, Amanda Longweather, cousin, Nathaniel Powers, grandfather, Jerusha Brooks, grandmother, Sarah Jane Allen, mother, Daniel Hollis, uncle, and Rachel Montgomery, aunt. I have added the PIDs for as many of their family members as I could easily find, and I'm still looking for Amanda Longweather and Rachel Montgomery. However, I wanted to look at the original records of those described in the 1957 research notes so I could verify them and see if there was any transcription errors or additional information. I first tried to access these records at the Family History Center that I worked at, but I could not find them. So on Friday, 9 August 2024, I had the opportunity to go to the Salt Lake Family History Library. We found Silas and Margaret Wilcox in the index film, and Margaret was in Volume A on page 4 and in Volume D on page 117. Silas was also in Volume A on page 4, but was also on page 31 and 176 in Volume A. Volume A, film 1833-76, starts with the year 1840 on page 1, but the baptisms for 1841 start at the bottom of the first page. Margaret Wilcox is the first proxy listed on page 4, where she was baptized for her mother, Sarah Jane Allen, which was, of course, her married name. Her maiden name was Sarah Jane Powers. Silas Wilcox was listed next as being baptized for his brother-in-law, William Allen. The only error that I saw here was that Margaret was baptized for her mother in 1841, not 1844, as noted in the 1957 report. The other 2 pages, Volume A, showing the proxy work of Silas Wilcox in 1841, shows his work that he did for his father, brother, sister, and brother-in-law. On page 31, it lists his sister, Anna Davis, and her husband, Horace Davis. On page 176, it lists his father, Israel Wilcox, and his brother Timothy Wilcox. Volume A is organized alphabetically for the family name of the deceased, and only the date is given as the year. Volume D, 1833-79, is organized by date the ordnance work was done. Also note that the women are listed with their married names and not their maiden names, which is significant in correcting errors and identifying these ancestors. Notice that all the baptisms for the dead that Margaret did on 4 August 1844 are listed together on page 117. Unfortunately, we could not see the page numbers, so we found it by finding the date first and then looking for the name of Margaret Wilcox. The only thing different from the 1957 report was the spelling of Langwither, and as mentioned before, Margaret was baptized for her mother in 1841. With the discovery that all of their baptismal records gave the married name and not the maiden name, it may be easier to identify the women in these records. A few years ago, researchers began to question that Jerusha Brooks was the maiden name of Margaret's grandmother, changing it to Jerusha Hart, daughter of Constant Hart and his second wife, Anna Holland. Therefore, I asked these 4 questions. Was grandmother Jerusha Hart, wife of Nathaniel Powers, married to a Brooks after Nathaniel died? Did Aunt Rachel Allen marry a Montgomery? Was cousin Amanda Langwither the daughter of Aunt Lois Allen and her second husband, George Anson Langworthy? What was the sister-in-law Laney Allen's maiden name? This slide answers the first questions with a few facts. Jerusha Hart Powers, Brooks or Brooker, corporate. Nathaniel Powers was born in 1754 in Battleboro, Windham, Vermont, and married in 1776, Madrid, St. Lawrence County, New York, to Jerusha Hart, born 1757, daughter of Constant Hart, who served in the Revolutionary War with Nathaniel Powers at Ticonderoga. Jerusha Powers, named as daughter of Constant Hart in his 1792 will. Family Search lists second husband as James Brooker, who she married after Nathaniel died in 1804. I have not found records that prove Aunt Rachel was married to anyone. However, it is probable that Aunt Rachel was the sister of Samuel Russell Allen, Margaret's father. Her Aunt Rachel Allen is listed with a spouse named Wren Hart. There is no documentation for that, so I added another spouse with a surname of Montgomery. This will answer the following question. Was cousin Amanda Langworthy the daughter of Aunt Lois Allen and second husband George Anson Langworthy? No, because her vital records show that she lived after 1844. But George Anson Langworthy had a first wife named Amanda Russell. She married George in 1823 and died in 1827, leaving 2 young sons, who were raised by George's second wife, named Lois Allen. There are 2 reasons that Amanda might be considered a cousin. She was wife of George, Uncle George, and she may have been a relative of Samuel Russell Allen, Lois's father. I did not find the maiden name of Lanny Allen. Margaret Belinda Allen Wilcox remained in Nauvoo until 1846. Silas Wilcox took his 2 sons, Silas Almiron, born in 1825, and David Alfred, born in 1830, to Wisconsin to gather lumber to help build the Nauvoo Temple and other projects. They may have left as early as 1844. Samuel Allen Wilcox, born in 1819, and his young family stayed in Nauvoo to help build the temple. So Margaret had her 2 younger children, Phoebe Ann, born in 1836, and William Christopher, born in 1841, living in Nauvoo in the same house as her oldest son and his wife and children. Part 3 will tell the story of what happened to Silas and Margaret after this point. It is the main reason I decided to make this story available to their descendants in this way. I will be making a video from the PowerPoint slides and adding them to YouTube, since Family Search does not allow videos to be uploaded in memories. I will use the script to create a story there. The story will also include sources and links to the YouTube video. I will also attach some images that document this story.